We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origin of savagery and of most bloody turmoil, and the multitudes disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will be from that moment on without direction and leadership, and anxious for an ideal but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view, a manifestation which will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time.
Would you go out with a transsexual woman? I feel that a lot of guys would not go out with somebody like me, even though I'm a woman, because they would worry about the connotations of it being confused with genderqueer.
I don't even think it. I think it's even more about. I think that we live in such a binary world where people think there's two options of gay and straight. And I think it's about fragile masculinity at the end of the day, that men think that it takes something away from them from being with a trans woman. And this rigid idea of like, I'm heterosexual, and if what does that mean? I don't know who I am anymore in this world if it's not binary.
I think, and then I believe it's your choice too. Like, I would choose not to. Like, that doesn't make me but
you
scared.
You would go out with another woman.
Would I go out with a woman?
You would go out with a woman.
Yes, of course.
But you wouldn't go out with a transsexual woman.
No.
I'm just saying he wouldn't feel comfortable going with what is termed, he wouldn't feel comfortable going with me. An extremely narrow band.
You're saying you're not gay,
and from my
but you're not
experience,
gay.
I'm not gay. But I've tried to date, and everything that comes back, you know, guys have chatted me up not knowing my past. But then as soon as they find out, whoa, I'm a woman, right? Okay. Forget about any T's or anything in front of it. I'm just a woman, okay? So on that score, you would date me, wouldn't you?
Not if you told me you was trans.
No, I'm not telling you I'm trans. I'm a woman.
A woman,
You would date me then.
Woman, yeah.
Go on, let's have a kiss.
No.
You see, and I think... I feel that a lot of guys would not go out with somebody like me, even though I'm a woman, because
some would though.
On the GLAD website, it says that a transgender is someone who identifies as a gender they were not assigned at birth. It is generally understood that biologically, you cannot become another gender. Yet, the individual in this clip is trying to convince us that he is a woman. He represents the extreme ideals of the LGBT. It's important to understand that his extreme assertion, although recognized as such today, could very well be the standard believed in 10 to 20 years from now. In fact, it's very likely that the intent of the LGBT movement is to slowly advance their ideologies toward these extreme positions over time. Today, our children are being brainwashed into believing that these lifestyles are normal. As elder generations continue to die out, our children will be exposed to more and more extreme ideologies. It's our job as Christians, Muslims, Jews, Israelites, whomever, to push back against these.
I don't even think it. I think it's even more about. I think that we live in such a binary world where people think there's two options of gay and straight.
Normally, you'll hear binary and spectrum being discussed in terms of gender, but here it's being discussed in terms of sexual orientation. So I'll stick to that line of discussion. All right, first, we have to acknowledge that the spectrum of sexuality is real. And just as the tree of knowledge was always in the midst of the garden and Adam and Eve, so too is the spectrum of sexuality in the midst of each and every one of us. The question we have to ask ourselves is, how does partaking of this spectrum affect us? Is it healthy to our bodies, our spirit, our families? Does the spectrum give life? Is it a part of God's plan? I have no doubt that the spectrum is capable of giving pleasure. The same is true for Adam and Eve when they ate of the fruit. But because it wasn't in God's plan, they were cursed along with their future generations. I feel like the people encouraging our children to take part in the spectrum don't consider God's plan for family. They want to create something resembling family, but that something lacks the power of family.
And I think it's about fragile masculinity at the end of the day, that men think that it takes something away from them from being with a trans woman. And
all right, so here we have one of the main attributes of the LGBT Luciferian movement on display. The claim here is made that men mistake their masculinity with their sexual behavior. Men and women, boys and girls, listen. The role of a righteous man requires him to control his penis. Men aren't supposed to sleep with children, other men's wives, dead people, animals, and whatever else is on the spectrum. And while manhood is not limited to sexual behavior, this is definitely something real men must master. To call yourself a righteous man and you haven't yet mastered your primal urges makes your claim vain and a lie. In terms of choice, the LGBT Luciferians take a very strong stance. Members of the movement forfeit the ability to choose anything concerning their lifestyles. The rest of us are robbed of our right to choose. We can't choose not to participate in the delusion. We can't choose to prefer women over men dressed as women. We can't choose to teach our children the truth. I used to have a hard time processing the hypocrisy of it all, but then I realized their agenda was satanic and devoid of logic, and because it is so, people like me will be able to counter every one of their arguments with common sense. So they silence us or intimidate us by various means. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is for us to stand together in our efforts to push back against these evils.
As a trans girl, I have found that dating can be difficult. So to all of you straight guys out there, here are a few things that you should know.
All right, now if you're wondering how far the LGBT Luciferians are willing to go in an effort to push their agenda, look no further than Jazz Jennings. Although Jazz isn't the first child victim of the movement, he is one of the most prominent. It seems the goal with these children is to groom them as early as possible, before they reach puberty. That way, the young boys never take on the countenance of a man, which is hard to reverse with surgery. This is important when you consider that no surgeon can guarantee the degree of success a procedure will have. Jazz was created to poison our sons, the evidence of which will be seen in the next clip. Imagine a man who is trans talking to your son, pushing this filth onto him, because that's exactly who's speaking to him. The producers of this video didn't set this expensive equipment up and pay all these people to let Jazz speak his mind. Adults are behind the puppet, speaking directly to your sons.
You don't have to be afraid to make physical contact with trans girls. We like hugs too, and we don't have cooties, okay? Oftentimes, boys will hug my friends and then they'll kind of just skip over me, and I'm like, why are you doing that? I'm a girl too, and just treat me normally.
All right, what Jazz is saying here with words is treat me normal, but that's not what he means. He means treat me the way you treat girls. If you're not comfortable getting physical with someone, you don't have to get physical with them, period. If you're not comfortable getting close to trans individuals, that's okay. They will live. Do not let them guilt you into making physical contact.
Trans girls are here. We exist. So you don't have to ignore us as friends or as girlfriends. Sometimes guys ignore me and it makes me feel like I'm different, but really I'm just like any other girl.
False. You want to be seen as a girl, but you are not like any girl. In too many ways to point out. Girls were born girls. You put on the outward likeness of a girl. But you don't become a girl just because you look like a girl. Now, this is easy for a person in a good mental state to process. But men and boys alike, in extreme circumstances, like isolation, may not be able to process these same things. Imagine someone in prison, someone at sea, at war, social misfits, or even males who are overexposed to sexual content. These words can become enticing, especially when Jazz's appearance is so similar to a girl his age. Your son could find himself making a decision out of desperation that could change his life forever. This is a very twisted message to put onto our children.
One of the most annoying questions that people ask me is if I chose to be transgender and be a girl. And no, it wasn't a choice. I was just born this way.
You?
I'm Dr. Chris Salgado. I'm a plastic and reconstructive surgeon and gender surgeon. So, first consultation with a plastic surgeon, second, third, fourth, fifth?
Third.
Third, okay, great. So we'd want to take a look at it, and then I could tell you what options we would have for you for that. Jazz, it's genitalia. It's very interesting. You know, I've done a number of these operations, but this is one of the first cases I see with this underdevelopment. And so it does bring up different challenges for the surgeon. This is definitely not like a straightforward case. Typically, we use the penile skin inversion technique, but I think it's gonna be quite challenging for anybody that does your surgery to try to create a vaginal canal with what you have using your penile skin. Your penile skin is only 2 inches. Normal vaginal canal length is about 4-5 inches. I would recommend, in your situation, a colon vaginoplasty. Show me a patient who's had a 2-inch phallus with about a 1.5-inch circumference, and show me the vagina that that patient has. I don't think she has so many options for this operation.
Are there, I don't know, appearance differences to this colon procedure? Aesthetically?
Not externally, no. There is some mucus discharge, okay, that typically
that smells, right?
It does for about 8 months but usually after a year, that's not an issue. As far as from an external genitalia perspective, it looks the same.
Really? Do you have any, are there any photos in here or no?
I can go get that.
Thank you. I just want a very pretty vagina.
One of the most annoying questions that people ask me is if I chose to be transgender and be a girl. And no, it wasn't a choice. I was just born this way.